Please, allow me to show you something.
Welcome to another episode of One Great Hand, the series that shows us some of the more interesting and entertaining moments that top players have had at the table. This time we feature 7-time Gold Cup winner and World Teams Championship medalist Peter Crouch. Hi Peter, thank you very much for coming along and joining the One Great Hand series. And you've picked a hand, I believe, from the Vanderbilt a few years back to tell us about.
Yeah, I mean, it was in 2019. It was, before obviously we went into COVID. It was the last. That year was the last of sort of American nationals before we had sort of a break from them because of COVID. I was playing on a team, basically an American team, with 4 American players, myself and Alex Hides, and we were playing the quarterfinals of the Vanderbilt, which is the main event in the US National in March 2019, and we got to the quarterfinals and we were playing against a very good team, and the pair we were playing against in the first set was a pair called Brinkley Driver, who most people would think was one of the best pairs in the world.
Yeah, indeed.
Certainly in the top 10 pairs in the world. And we were playing in 15 board sets, and we'd reached towards the end of the set, and Alex and I have been doing quite well, which was good because they were a very strong pair.
So talk us through the auction then.
Okay, so at the auction, Alex passed, and Brink on my right opened the club, which was a multi-purpose bid, was forcing and could contain a number of hand types. His partner, Driver, bid a heart, showing 4 or more hearts and at least 7 high card points. And Brinkley bid 2 diamonds, which was 18-20 balanced, or some other hands, I think. And 2 spades was a sort of relay from Driver. And
sorry to interrupt you, Peter, but what do you think is the advantage of the system bid that they have bidding 2 diamonds there, as opposed to bidding 2 no trumps, perhaps, which most of us would do?
Yeah, I think 2 no trumps was probably some sort of artificial raise. I don't know the exact system, but a lot of people. Also, the advantage of bidding 2 diamonds is they've got more room.
Yeah.
If you start the auction a club of heart, 2 no trumps, your auction continues at the free level. If you start a club of heart, 2 diamonds, you've now got 2 hearts available, 2 spades available, 2 no trumps available. You just have more room, and these hands are quite common. The balanced hands tend to be more common than the unbalanced hands, so making room with the balanced hands is quite a good idea generally. So what happened here is I don't know exactly what Driver and Brink's system would have been, but 2 spades was basically a puppet or a relay, and partner had to bid 2 no trumps. And now he could have shown all sorts of hands, and no doubt he could have shown other hands by going a different way directly. So this was a very good part of their method. So he bid 3 no trumps, and all I really knew at this point was Declarer had 18-20 balanced. He wouldn't have 4 hearts because Dummy had shown 4 hearts. And Dummy had enough for game opposite that because they'd shown 7 or more initially. So when you get these sort of hands, you have to decide whether you want to be aggressive or passive. Now, generally, I think most experts tend to be more passive than most other players, most club players. And so for me, the choice was a passive 10 of diamonds or an aggressive low club. With the hearts bid on my left, hearts was not really in the equation, and I wouldn't ever consider a spade because, one, Alex had had a chance to bid a spade over a heart. He'd had a chance to open some sort of rubbish hand, with 2 diamonds or something multi or something like that, or 2 spades, weak. So spade didn't look likely, so I went with the 10 of diamonds, which felt to me the right lead, and I'm sure I would lead that another time.
Okay.
So Dummy hit with what's roughly what you'd expect, a minimum hand, and Clara played the Queen of Diamonds from the Dummy, and Alex played the 8 of Diamonds. Now, for us, we play standard attitude at trick 1. After that, we play upside down attitude. Maybe that's a little bit complex, but Zia recommends that highly.
Do you know why? What's the thinking behind that?
Well, partly because you want to, not on this hand at all, but sometimes if you play low encouraging at trick 1, which is very common in America and a lot of Europe, You sometimes fail to unblock in the suit that you need to unblock for partner. And if you then end up playing a high card discouraging to unblock, then partner thinks you don't like the suit. So it's a method that I used to play upside down or with reverse attitude at trick one, and I switched to playing standard at trick one and upside down after that. And I would say it's slightly better, but I don't think there's a huge amount in it. It just happens on an occasional hand it helps you. But there are hands where it doesn't work for you as well. With all signaling methods, you've got to decide, what you think works best for you. And I would say upside down is generally better after trick one, because when you've got, say, 10, 7, 3 in the suit, you can throw the 10 a lot of the time, or the 7, it doesn't really matter. But when you've got Queen 10, 8, 3, you sometimes need to keep the 8 or the 10, so you don't want to throw that card or signal with that card. So that's where upside down tends to work better. So anyway, what happened is De Clara covered with the Queen, Alex ducked, but he told me he had the King effectively by playing the 8 of diamonds or the ace, and De Clara won in dummy. And De Clara now had an interesting decision to make at trick 2. He decided to play a club to the 9. This would have been very good if Alex had had Queen Jack of clubs, because he wouldn't have split, and he would have then had 3 club tricks for certain. So anyway, I won, and I had a pretty obvious continuation of the second diamond, which was ducked all round. So I knew pretty much what the diamond position was here. Now, I switched to the Jack of spades. I didn't particularly have an easy switch here. A low club was a possibility.
Yeah.
I wasn't 100% certain that of the position, but or the Jack of clubs. And anyway, De Clara played the King of spades from dummy, and now played another spade at trick 5 to his 10. Now he might have guessed to play run the 8 of spades or play a spade to his 7. That was a possibility for him, but it was a big play for De Clara to make that, and a spade to the 10 was certainly very reasonable. Now De Clara then cashed the ace of clubs and the king of clubs, Alex pitching diamonds, Alex pitched a diamond on the third club, and then he played a club to me, and Alex pitched his last diamond. So by this stage, I basically knew the whole hand in terms of distribution, and we just needed to stop De Clara making a second heart trick. So when you look at the position, if I lead a low heart now, De Clara will play one of his 3 honours from dummy, and then win the ace and play a heart back to me, and I'll have to give De Clara heart tricks in dummy. So the only card I could play to stop De Clara doing this was the King of Hearts. Now, it looks quite a flashy play, but in all honesty, it was quite a simple play, and I didn't take very long about it at all. I probably did it within a few seconds of getting in, because by that stage, I knew what the hand was.
And you say it's simple, but it's quite counterintuitive, isn't it?
It's an unusual play, but it wasn't. I would say it's not a difficult play. It's something that you would be very disappointed to get wrong at the table. I would be, and De Clara obviously had played the hand very reasonably, and it just happened to go down on the layout. I think at the other table they had led a heart, maybe they didn't lead a diamond, and the contractor made an overture. So a lot of it was about going passive at trick 1, and I'd recommend that a lot. Unless there's a good reason to lead a long suit. Here, my only long suit was their suit, so that wasn't very interesting. It's quite a good idea to go passive and let Clara make their own mistakes, rather than give them a trick early in the play.
Absolutely. I mean, you say you'd have been disappointed to get it wrong. I'd have been wildly excited to get it right, but that's the difference between the expert and the club player, I guess. But,
I think it's because sometimes I've seen these sort of positions before. I was discussing this with some people I work with, sometimes I coach and that, and I said to them, it's much harder for you when you're playing, because a lot of positions you've never seen before. When you've been playing bridge for 40 years, you've seen so many of these positions before that you don't think on a lot of hands. And, if you're a less experienced player and you're playing a 24 board set, you might be thinking on virtually every hand. While a lot of the so-called experts, in inverted commas, probably are only thinking on at most half the hands and maybe even less than that, because they've seen the position so many times. They're just on sort of a semi-autopilot.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good point and it's why people can have the stamina to survive something that looks impossible, like the Bermuda Bowl schedule, for example, where, the player who has to think on every hand or throughout every hand would just be mentally exhausted by, like 2 days into that. So it must really help to be able to process on that level that's slightly subconscious a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I think also there's a little bit of difference between pairs and teams here, because it pairs, you probably need to think a little bit more, because, it teams, if the opponents are playing 2 clubs and you let them make an over trick for 110 rather than 90,
it's no biggie.
It doesn't really matter too much. I mean, yeah, it might matter if you lose the match by 1, then you're going to be very upset about those sort of hands later on, but generally that doesn't happen very often. So people don't worry too much about the odd over trick here and there at imps, while they have to at pairs.
Nice. Indeed.
Yeah.
So that's a really good hand, Peter. Really interesting. So we'll just chat now about if you have a funny story. Do you have a good story for us? That's
Wow. I mean, I think what I remember is some of the disasters. I tend to remember funny hands and disasters, and the disasters I remember are often because you don't concentrate and you lose your focus. And certainly it's something I was guilty of when I started playing reasonably high level bridge, maybe 35 years ago. I remember one hand where I claimed at trick 1 because I miscounted my tricks, and I thought I had 12 tricks. I was playing a slam. So it was an important contract to get right. Now, on the actual layout, everything was sitting reasonably comfortably, and I could not have gone down if I hadn't claimed. But because I claimed and put my hand on the table, I had to go 1 off. And I think from what I remember, it was a 14 trials, and we were the only pair to bid the slam. So this was incredibly expensive. And these sort of things you learn through experience. And certainly I make less of those mistakes now than I would have done 35 years ago or 30 years ago. You learn through experience not to rush. Because if you're playing 2 spades and you've got 9 or 10 tricks, it's not so important to take a lot of time at trick 1. Maybe if you're playing pairs it is, but not so important against. But if you're playing slams, and you should at least make sure before you claim that you've got everything correct.
At least 12 tricks. Yeah. Doesn't matter if you miss number 30. Yeah. Who was your partner on that occasion?
My partner was a guy called John Hobson, who doesn't play anymore. He was a very...
Did he never play again after that?
Well, he did for a while, but he was like a lot of people. They had to make a decision about what was their priority. He's the guy I still see. I had lunch with him yesterday, but he would have been a very, very good player. He was certainly a better player than I was. It's also difficult with situations with, when you start bridge. I always think if you start bridge young, you have more time to waste on bridge.
Exactly.
I started bridge when I started seriously playing bridge when I was at university, and I spent 3 years probably spending more time doing bridge than I did my studies.
Also, you think differently when you're young, I think. So, I teach quite a lot of 9 and 10-year-olds now. It's a mental flexibility thing, like with language. Yeah. Yeah,
it's a massive advantage to start early. If you can, also maybe play other card games when you're younger, that helps as well. I mean, I didn't play a lot of bridge until I went to university. I hardly played any bridge. Basically.
Well, we didn't have PlayStations as an option, whereas...
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, obviously much more tempting for some now. But the interesting thing is when you do introduce bridge as an alternative, many of the kids that I've seen really do take to it and really do enjoy it. So it is a viable competitor to the PlayStation, but it has to be shown to them. That's the thing.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
And let's hope that some of the backlash against too much screen time may push things back in that direction in the future, that people will play more games with their kids that are non-screen based, and we'll have a whole new wave of bridge players coming up from an early age.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Okay, so thank you again, Peter. That's really interesting, good stuff. And I'm sure that everyone will enjoy watching it and hearing your thoughts about that hand. Thanks again.
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks, Sue.
Peter is one of the many experts to play in the regular monthly Newtrix tournaments. You can register to enter these free tournaments at www.newtrixbridge.club. Or better still, win a chance to play with one of our experts by becoming a higher tier supporter at patreon.com/ntbridge. See you next time.